Bringing character back from the dead can be a very fun endeavor, if said character serves a larger narrative or has a compelling one of their own. Unfortunately, Boba Fett serves neither purpose in his own show. In the Book of Boba Fett, it doesn't really feel like Boba has a very clear motivation. He wants to save the people of Mos Espa. Why? He wants to stop the Pikes from moving spice through the city. Why? He wants to have a family, a group that's loyal to him. Well, he had that with the Tuskens, and he traded it in for the Island of Misfit Toys. So what is Boba Fett's purpose?
Why are you here?
What's his motivation? Well, he said it in the 3rd episode. He was ready to settle down with the Tuskens and leave his life of violence and bounty hunting behind him. It would be so much fun to see a known ruthless bounty hunter try to change his ways for the better, become less violent, put bounty hunting behind him, and be just generally tested as a character. But instead, when the Tuskens are killed, Boba gets effortless vengeance on the speeder bike gang who he thinks killed them, and then goes back to the old life that he had. He's played for a fool, and that does not bode well for someone who's apparently smarter than the bosses before him. My biggest edit for this show is that the Tuskens aren't killed, not entirely at least, but are instead enslaved or captured by the Pikes. Boba could gather up his whole new family, and they could all go save the Tuskens together. Boba could teach them to be loyal to each other, to be less violent towards others. And in a lawless galaxy, they could show people that they don't need to live in fear of raiders, pirates, and crime lords who don't care about them, and that they can solve their problems without using violence. An alliance of lifetime bounty hunters and street rats have control over Mos Espa and are loyal to each other and the people living there. And Boba gets to retire. This is what he wanted, right? It would have been such a fun dichotomy to see both Boba Fett and Maul spend their golden years in the Dune Sea, but with shockingly different outcomes. Maul spent his whole life trying to get revenge on those who wronged him, and he only found peace in his final moments. It was a tragic yet satisfying way to put a character to rest. And I wish Boba Fett chose a different path. To have Boba Fett put a similarly hard life behind him would have been better for the character. He's seen so many like him spend their whole life serving others, and I just wish that the character had decided to truly serve himself in his final years. But instead, he stays and becomes the daimyo of Mos Espa because he believes that he can improve it and be better than the bosses before him. Trust me, I've thought of staying at jobs for years because I thought I could do better, but that's not my fight. And this doesn't feel like Boba's either. You could honestly move the scene where he finds out who truly killed the Tuskens to an earlier episode so he has a true, real reason to fight the Pikes. Instead, he finds out in one of the last episodes, and he just gets a little bit upset. It feels like the Tuskens meant nothing to him. It doesn't feel like any of the side characters mean anything to Boba. He swears his loyalty to them, but it all feels very empty, like he just picked them all up off the street and called them family, which he kind of literally did. They all seemed like unnecessary side characters. And unfortunately, there's a lot of those packed into this show. The galaxy is made to feel much smaller with the addition of all of these extra characters. The Mandalorian is guilty of this too, but at least in Season 3, Bo-Katan feels more like a new protagonist of the show, and less like a fan-favorite character that's just there to keep people watching. The Book of Boba Fett never stood a chance trying to be its own story while it was shackled to the continuity of a larger narrative. All of the time that we spend with these extra characters could have gone towards a more compelling narrative with maybe just 2 to 3 characters as the main focus. But we can't just erase all of these characters, so at least one of them, aside from Boba, needs a reason to be there. They need their own motivation, and that character is Cad Bane. Cad Bane could have been used as the center point villain of this show, maybe show some rivalry brewing between them. Maybe Cad Bane's just doing it for the money, but he's doing things to Boba Fett throughout the entire show, leaving his mark and taunting a now less violent Boba Fett to fight him. Until Boba knows that he cannot complete his mission of saving his Tusken family without going through Cad Bane. Bane could poke at Boba Fett for being just another clone, like all the ones he's killed before him. But Boba Fett's not just any clone. He's the son of Jango Fett. And unlike his clone brethren before him, he has a fighting chance to define his own life. A newly non-violent Boba Fett trying to fight Cad Bane without killing him, trying to be a role model for his new town and his family, would give the show the tension and the character development that it desperately needs. And he can't just do it in the last episode. I think it's kind of well known at this point that the Book of Boba Fett wasn't really made for its bombad story, and more just made to tide over those waiting for The Mandalorian Season 3. But it just feels like a waste, in my opinion, to not give such fan-favorite characters the love and care that they deserve. If Disney Plus Star Wars shows continue to serve this larger universe narrative and put too much stock into high action and fan service instead of their own stories, these shows will continue to be very limited in their storytelling capabilities. But that's just my opinion. I love Star Wars. I love this universe, and I'm here to talk about it. So please let me know what you thought about the Book of Boba Fett. What would you change? What would you keep the same? Do you think it's a perfect show? All the same, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Bye-bye. Boba, Boba, Boba. Boba, Boba Fett.